Date point. 4th year, 9th month, 1st week, 3rd day, AV. Fall for colony, Simbreen, the Far Reaches. Adam Aries. You were her best friends. I think she'd want you to be involved. No. And it means a lot to me that you're asking, but, I'm Catholic, Ava said at last. I'm sure your God would understand, Ava. I guess, but this is Sarah. She taught me so much. I can't lie at her funeral. I can't say words I don't believe. I'm sorry. Haley Tysdale paused. Then she nodded sadly and wiped away a tear.
You're right. She wouldn't want that, she agreed. Adam?
He sighed.
Look, I don't know. I'm not sure I believe in anything anymore,
he said at last.
So I'm with Ava. I can't do this stuff here.
He tapped the printout they were going over.
But I'd like to do this one here, if that's okay.
Haley read it and smiled.
We were going to give that to Jack, but yes, please. Thanks for asking us, Haley, Ava told her. Really.
She hugged them both and let herself out, leaving the pair of them to sit in silence for a bit.
Did you mean that? Ava asked. About not believing anymore?
It's hard to, Adam confessed.
I know, she sighed. I need this to all be happening for a reason, I don't think I could cope if there wasn't a plan behind it all.
He hugged her.
There's something going on. I know that much, he said. There is? Oh yeah, there's a pattern. Something behind it all. Mr. Johnson back home, now Sarah. It's all connected, I just know it. I think my dad's in on it. Are you going to ask him? She looked up. I think he'd have told you by now if he could. Yeah, he would have, Adam sighed. But I'm still going to ask him. And if there is something going on, then I'm going to find out what. How? He shrugged. However, I have to.
Date point. 4th year, 9th month, 1st week, 5th day, AV. Fall for colony, Simbreen, the Far Reaches. Legacy Jones. Intel package for you, sir. Anybody else might have said that Captain Power's office looked like a bomb had hit it. Legacy, being acutely aware of exactly what bomb damage actually looked like, tended not to use that phrase, but it would have very nearly been accurate. The office doubled as Power's private space and sleeping area, and it was invariably pristine. On the one occasion that Legacy had seen Power take his boots off, they had been lined up neatly under his camp bed with the laces tucked inside them. While the captain had once muttered a repetition of the old saw that any unit in battle-ready condition would fail inspection, he nevertheless was a stickler for keeping his own space immaculate. Today was different. The filing cabinet was open. Folders were strewn across the desk. The camp bed's blankets were a bundle at the foot end. The captain's kettlebells and weights were strewn across the floor rather than stacked. And a neglected ration pack on the table that had clearly been aborted halfway through preparation. Powell himself was an even worse sight. He looked rumpled. The skin around his eyes had gone dark. The eyes themselves had reddened. He was sporting a fine crop of reddish and grey whiskers. On the desk, he grunted, not glancing up from what he was reading. It looked like he was revising literally everything that humanity knew about the hierarchy. That was hardly surprising. The captain had taken the girl's death hard, harder than he let on. One of the obvious symptoms of what was obsession with her killers, though this was by far the worst case that Legacy had ever witnessed. His terse response, however, was troubling. A really long experience of working with him had allowed Legacy to even tell the difference. While Powell had never exactly been a cuddly personality, he was never usually rude or dismissive with his men. He'd gotten tougher since the girl died, demanding a full and complete inspection of every last detail of the rescue attempt, searching for anything that could have been done better. Nobody wanted to be the one to voice the opinion to him that they'd done as well as humanly possible. Where on the desk, Captain? He asked, unable to identify any spot that looked like it was more ready to receive the latest report than any other spot did. Fucking anywhere. Do I look like I give a shit? The captain growled. Yes, sir. Lexi put it down on top of what he hesitantly guessed might be the in pile. Powell didn't react, just turning the page. He only glanced up when Lexi cleared his throat. Carry on, he snapped. Sir, have you slept? Lexi ventured. I don't see how that's your fucking business, Jones, Powell said sharply. You're dismissed. Lexi saluted and turned for the door, deeply troubled, and then decided that he had a duty to perform. He turned back. Permission to speak candidly, Captain? He asked. Pretty fucking sure I dismissed you, Jones, so no. Permission denied. That was a red alert. Oh well. To borrow the motto of a sister unit, who dared won. I don't fucking care, sir. You're gonna fucking listen, he announced. The sheer audacity of it snapped the captain out of his revision, and earned Lexi a trademark Powell glare. Look at this place, he said, keeping the momentum up. This isn't like you, sir. I've worked with you long enough to see there's something fucking wrong here. You're not yourself. Powell lurched to his feet, face thunderous. Sergeant Jones, if I have to order you out of my office again, he began. Get yourself to counseling, sir, Lexi told him. Powell froze. As shocked as if his subordinate had reached out and slapped him. I'm fucking fine, he asserted. And you are this fucking close to. Psych's a wound like any other, Lexi recited desperately, interrupting him. You get it seen to just like you get a bullet seen. Your own words. He swallowed, stiffened, and stared hard at the back wall. Sir. There was a long, dangerous silence. Finally, Powell spoke. He'd always been a deep-voiced man. Now the words practically rumbled out of him, as quiet and as full of smouldering danger as the voice of Vesuvius. Sergeant Jones, I am ordering you to leave this office immediately. If you do not give me a perfect fucking salute, and then fuck off post-fucking haste without another fucking word, it will go fucking badly for you. Am I crystal fucking clear? Lex's salute shook a little rain of dust from the ceiling, and he effected the speediest exit he had ever managed. He just hoped that it would turn out to be worth it. Date point. 4th year, 9th month, 2nd week, AV. Fall for Colony, Simbrine, the far reaches. Jotun. The central hall of the Faith Center had been cleared out. All the furniture, cushions, books, even the carpet had been rolled up and taken away, leaving behind bare floor which had been marked with an 8-pointed star of some kind. Jotun and his brothers had elected to lurk in a corner, out of the way, and watch. Most of the humans seemed to be equally as uninformed as he was to the nature of the ceremony, which he found interesting. There was a lot of milling around and talk and quiet confusion, much of which centered on a small, overweight human female, whose silvered head fur was long enough to reach her knees, about half of which had been tied back away from her face. So, is this their senior mother or something? Yrrol asked. Jotun indicated not. I don't recognize her, he said. Besides, they don't have a clan of females like we do. Then who? The question was interrupted by some angry, loud words being spoken on the opposite side of the room, which got louder and angrier as their speaker stormed towards the door, which had just admitted Captain Powell and his team into the room. How dare you! The speaker was an older man, small and balding, and looking positively tiny next to the soldiers, who all glanced at each other in dismay at being so accosted. How dare you come here! You felled her! He was the very picture of righteous indignation in any species' body language, and the shocked expressions of so many of the other Deathworlders suggested that his accusation was not a widely shared one. But what struck Jotun was the soldiers' composure. They fidgeted, and some of them looked ready to retort, but all it took was a slight turn of Powell's head to quiet them instantly. Even the silver-haired elder, who had been hurrying to soothe out the conflict, paused. It was Powell's face that rooted Jotun to the spot, however. On a human's mobile and subtle features, the total absence of any expression whatsoever communicated volumes. You're right, Powell said. His voice was deep and soft and emotional. We did. He took a step forward and the little man backed off. Think about what that must feel like, and you'll understand why we're here. There was a general awkward clearing of throats and shuffling of feet, as the soldiers took up a respectful position towards one side of the room, standing in a formal posture with their feet apart and their hands behind their backs. Awkward silence descended again, finally broken by a syncopated drumming from outside the hall that got steadily louder, being joined by the high-pitched voice of some stringed instrument playing a lament. As the musicians crossed the threshold and stood playing on either side of the door, the soldiers snapped their feet together and removed their berets. It was a small coffin, carried by only 4 people, and lay solemnly on the table in the middle of the room as the music came to a gentle stop. Ladies and gentlemen, the order began, as the bearers retreated to positions around the room. "As you may be aware, Sarah's family have requested they will remember her life in accordance with pagan traditions. There should be nothing in what we are about to do that can cause offense to anyone. But if you would prefer to pay your respects now, after your own fashion, and then wait outside, it will take a few moments of silence for you to do so. I'm sure that Sarah will not mind." A few of those present did exactly that, approaching to touch the box or mutter words. The little man who had accosted the soldiers and a female of similar apparent age, his mate, knelt stiffly and whispered for a little while, before standing and leaving, both weeping openly. Once they had gone, the elder stepped forward again. "Thank you. You'll find the order of the ceremony in the leaflets we handed out, but please do not feel pressure to participate if you don't wish to. As one of Sarah's friends," she nodded to Ava, "put it so eloquently, we don't think that Sarah would want us to lie on her behalf. And so, let us take a few deep breaths to prepare ourselves. Breathe deeply, and remember the love you have for Sarah and the joy she brought you. And so we begin." She took a deep breath of her own and raised her hands. "Let us call for peace, that in peace the voice of the Spirit may be heard. May there be peace in the east. May there be peace in the south. May there be peace in the west. May there be peace in the north." Reading from the booklet, most of the mourners recited with her. "May there be peace throughout all the worlds." The elder turned towards one of the points of the star on the ground. "Spirits of the east, powers of air, we call you. Bring us bright memories of our beloved Sarah, and of the laughter that surrounded her. Blessed be." As she turned through each of the cardinal directions, invoking in turn fire, water, and earth, Gilton had to prod Targrel to get him to stop fidgeting, eventually having to deploy a claw to get his brother to really quiet down, start showing some respect. He would be the first to admit that he himself didn't understand what compass directions, air, water, and so on had to do with anything. Whatever was going on, it seemed to be working for the humans. Or at least, for most of them. The huge soldier, Legsy, was wiping water off his face every other second, as was almost everybody else in the room. In fact, there were only a portful of dry eyes in the whole building, and they belonged to the Gallians, unsurprisingly, for physical reasons, and to Adam and Ava, who simply looked tired. Gilton had become adept at reading a human's expressive face by now, and weariness seemed to be the closest approximation he could think of for what theirs was showing. The last dry face was Powell's. His usually inscrutable mask was now a scowl, an expression of the most deep and deadly anger, directed at something that Gilton was desperately glad he couldn't see, and was infinitely more glad it wasn't him. He was so busy watching the captain, and speculating about what colossally stupid entity it was that had attracted such depth of ire, that he completely missed the eulogies, and only returned his attention to the ceremony when the priestess started to speak again. "O Great Spirit, Mother and Father of us all, we ask for your blessings on this, our ceremony of thanksgiving, an honouring and blessing of Sarah. We stand at a gateway now, a gateway that each of us must step through at some time in our lives, and which Sarah already passed. Her soul is immersed in the shining light of the unity that is the Mother and Father of us all. The sadness and pain that we feel now is in our knowledge and our experience of the fact that we ourselves cannot yet cross that threshold to be with her until our time has come. We do not weep for our beloved sister, for she is beyond all pain, all fear and all illusion. We weep instead for ourselves, at the pain of our separation. And so to ease that pain, let us all now spend some time in silence to remember Sarah, to call her up in our minds and to speak to her in the private places of our heart, and free ourselves of our burdens, saying to her all those things that we always wanted her to hear." This part was familiar to Gilton. Silence. He filled it by stepping on Tagrel's foot when his brother started fidgeting again. The silence was broken some minutes or two later by the priestess, who turned to the younger heirs. "Adam?" Adam smiled weakly, nodded and swallowed, then stepped forward, turned to the coffin, and read through the booklet, a little shakily. "Did you know it was time to fly?" he asked. "I didn't want to say goodbye, but we all know this is not the end. Finally, the weariness broke, and he paused, bit on his lower lip and looked down, squeezing his eyes shut. Alone in the middle of the room, he sobbed once, before finally managing to rally himself and continue. "Farewell for now, my dear,
dear friend.